All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Industrial Marketing Live again today. We are super excited to jump in. Before I do, I'll do my usual housekeeping for any of the new folks that we've got, a few new names and faces. Industrial Marketing Live is a unique space. It's a webinar, but it's also a workshop. It's a place where we welcome videos. We welcome you to be unmuted. We welcome you to jump in, ask questions. The chat is always a fun place. Separate conversations can go on there. It doesn't offend us at all. So no worries there, but please do ask questions along the way. Today, we're going to be talking about conversion rate optimization. And it's going to be a great conversation. But before we jump in, I do also want to just remind you that you can keep the conversation going with us on Slack. We've got a community now there. So if you have not yet joined the Industrial Marketing Live Slack channel and you want to, just put a little note in the chat, say, I want in, raise your hand, thumbs up, whatever, and I will make sure you get an invitation. But that's all for me. 2-minute spiel, getting faster at this all the time. And let's get into the meat of this. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking about conversion rate optimization. And we've got another gorilla on the call, Randall Zaitz. He is our usability expert, our creative director here at Gorilla, and we're super happy to have him. So Randall, you can just give everyone a little wave so they know who you are.
Yeah, it's me. Good morning.
Awesome. And with that, I'm just going to kick it right over to you, Aaron, to kind of set the stage for us. Why are we talking about conversion rate optimization today?
Thank you, Peyton. Again, I do the why because I have a philosophy degree, so it's very natural for me. But really, I thought this was a great topic, and this is one where if you're in the chat, like throw some stuff at us. In a nutshell, it's like your customers have to fill out a form to talk to you for most organizations that have an inbound motion. So we wanted to bring Randall on today to really like do it tactically. Like if you have examples, like let's bring them up, let's talk through it. But really, I want us to focus on this is if you have to have your customer come to the website to talk to you, let's make it as easy as possible. And often when I'm working with a client the first time, the first thing I do is before I look at Google ads, Facebook ads, paid media, their strategy, like none of that matters to me. I go to the form, I fill it out. Is it hard? Does it take me a while? Does it make sense? If all of those are checked in the wrong way, that's an indication that it's probably hard to work with you, right? And I know that's not true, but because we had that conversion rate experience like that, people are going to think, man, I really don't want to work with this company. That was a pain. And now they're going to just call me and ask me about things that weren't even what I wanted. Like those are the experiences we really want to stop. So as we talk about the why, it's again, how do we make it as easy as possible for customers to raise their hand and talk to sales so we can give them what they need? I'll kind of stop there. And I think, Mary, I always love your insight because you were recently in-house. I've been in the agency world. I'm too used to telling people to like stop doing things. I know it's much, much harder than that. Do you want to kind of add anything with your experience there, Mary?
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. And I think it's one of those things that gets easily overlooked in-house. We always talk about here at Gorilla, choosing the hills you want to die on from a marketing standpoint. And I know when I was in-house, the contact us form for my former company was the hill I was willing to die on. There was way too many forms. The page was very busy. There was like hotel information, address information, like newsletters to the side. So we want to make sure like our contact us form, that main conversion point, is not only as simple as possible, so free from any distractions, but also as easy as possible. So like reducing those form fields is going to be key. And I know Randall has some really great thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. When you're looking at your forms, you definitely want to make it as simple as possible and like cut forms until it's like a really, really hard decision. you're really wringing your hands about, man, should we have this form on here? Is it really, really necessary? Like cut. That's in general, when you're talking about the layout of the page too, even simpler is always better. And you might see a simple layout and be like, wow, that looks like it'd be really easy to do. But oftentimes it's painful and difficult to get to that like simplified situation. So you're going in the right direction when it starts to like hurt to delete things from your page when you're really starting to question it. It'll be easy at first and it gets harder as you go. And it just, you really want to push yourself to make it as simple as possible.
Definitely. Randall, do you want to kind of talk through maybe how to think about different forms differently, like contact form, get a quote form, newsletter form? Does that matter with what you have in it?
Yeah, the length or the difficulty, the amount of work you're asking someone to do to fill out a form should be proportional or relative to like what they're filling out the form to do. So if you think about like something as simple as a email newsletter sign up, on your blog or your learning center or something like that, that should be as simple as just their email. You maybe ask them for their first and last name. But email should be enough. It should be super, super simple to do that because it's like such a low effort thing. And there's no stakes involved, no money's changing hands, and you just want to grow that list and keep your brand top of mind for people. Going down the list to like let's say you're selling really big fancy machines, and it's $1 million investment, that kind of form, I think that there's going to be an expectation from your website visitor that form is going to be a little more involved, because you want to get the right information to build that machine or that product correctly, and that's going to require a little more details. And you can just say that above the form. You can just say, hey, we want to get this right. This form's going to take you 3 minutes to fill out. And just be really transparent about it. You don't want somebody to get stuck in the middle of a form wondering where is the end of this thing, and then they just nope out. Yeah, so like the length and the questions that you're asking are definitely relevant to what you're offering as the result of filling out that form.
Totally, Randall. I'm gonna jump in on that. And Mary, looks like you have something to say, so I want you to give you the floor. The big thing for me is like clarity inspires confidence. So if you have a get a quote form, be very clear on why it's very long. Be very clear on what they're filling out and why. Be very clear on why they need this spec information. Because for most of us in industrial, they may not be talking to sales first, depending on how big your company is. If you're a mid-sized company, they're talking to an engineer, right? And for that conversation to be productive, that engineer needs specs. They need all that kind of information so they can help you. And I think if we're more clear on those kind of forms, then it's not creating friction. It's not creating a bad customer experience. We're telling them like, to give us more information, we can help you out more. Mary, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just had a thought on the form fields, like not only making them as few as possible, but making sure you're capturing the right information. So most marketing platforms, so like a HubSpot, something like that, even like Google Analytics to a certain extent, are going to be very limited in the way that they attribute your sources. So where your customers are coming in, you have organic, direct, referrals, email, and other. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, right? But if you're running like any kind of social media strategy, YouTube strategy, those platforms, due to privacy policies, which are only getting stricter, will never tell you that that's where they're coming from. So if you're running any kind of strategy like that, we always recommend our customers put in a free form text field at the bottom. That's like a how did you hear about us? And I know Randall also mentioned during our prep call yesterday, give them like a message form that's like nice and long and big. Let them like say as much as they want in both that, how did you hear about us, and leave us a message. You would be so surprised at some of the detail we get from these customers. Like we have a how did you hear about us form at Gorilla. And we run a social media strategy, both organic and paid. And we'll hear stuff like, we heard you on this very specific episode of our founder, Joe Sullivan's podcast. So like no attribution software is ever going to tell you that. And that like helps us reinforce which marketing strategies are working and which aren't. If we only relied on attribution, we would be all in on direct traffic. And that doesn't really mean too much. We might just like be focusing on website content, but that how did you hear about us forum is almost always LinkedIn and the podcast. So even though that attribution is telling us direct traffic, now we're doubling down on organic LinkedIn and Joe's doubling down on his podcast. So that's just another thought if you're running multiple marketing strategies.
Yeah, that's a great one, Mary. And I think to bring it back high level with conversion rate optimization is we've really been talking about forms and how to separate forms, but just in general, I think there's some design and usability practices you can implement on your website to make the whole experience better. And Randall, I'm going to throw it over to you to kind of throw some at us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm going to give you a lazy answer first and then give you some more details. There is a website called lawsofux.com. And it's a really nice looking website. It's very simple because what they're doing is simple, but they have a bunch of principles and laws, if you want to call them that, of UX and usability design. And some of them kind of are counter to one another, but it's a good thing to just kind of read through and familiarize yourself with when you're thinking about making changes to something like a landing page. It's going to tell you lots of really great things with fancy names. I'm trying to find a good one here. Like Hick's Law. This is a really good one and super relevant when you're thinking about the navigation on your website and even the number of form fields and options in that form. Hick's Law is the time it takes to make a decision increases with the number and complexity of choices. So the more choices that you give someone, the more they have that like analysis paralysis or choice overload, and they may not make a decision, or they may make the wrong one, or they might just leave your website or abandon a form. So that's just one really useful resource. But yeah, when approaching like your website and the landing page as a whole, a big part of conversion rate optimization is thinking about how people get to that page. You might have a theory or an idea about how people navigate there, where they're coming from to get to your website in the first place, and then kind of the path that they take through your website. So it's always important to have a theory and work on that theory, but also to test it. And there's really simple ways to test, your conversion path. And one of the best ways is to install heat map software. I know in Google Analytics, there's ways you can look at, I forget what it is. I'm not an analytics expert, but there's ways that you can see the path that someone came to a page, and it's like listed out by percentage of people that came from the homepage to a specific page and where they went next. There's a lot of good insights that you can get from that. And I'll kind of like put a period on all of that with take all of that information with a grain of salt, especially heat maps. Don't make heat maps your like sole source of like data to make decisions based off of, because they're not perfect. The data is very noisy. Yeah. Do you guys have anything to add, or do you have questions about that?
I'm gonna add some, Randall. I think some of the best tests, like even if you do not want to invest in heat map software, which I would argue you probably should, ask someone to fill out the form that has nothing to do with your industry. I use my wife. I use my sister. I'll just ask them to come fill it out, because again, that experience needs to be intuitive. Even if you know nothing about what you're buying, they should understand from usability best practice how to get to point A to point B. I think that becomes very obvious when you ask someone who has no skin in the game to just like fill out a contact form. You're going to learn a lot just by watching them. Mary, you got any tricks on that either?
Yeah, I love that. I think this all goes back to that clarity conversation we were having. So making sure you're not only being as clear as possible on the actual contact us form, what they can expect, stuff like that. that thank you page is surprisingly popular. So making sure you're as clear as possible once someone submits that form. How long are they going to wait until someone gets in touch with them? What are some other resources you can give them? And, just talking maybe a little more tactical and like not necessarily conversion rate optimization, but like how easy is it after they get in contact for them to move through the buying process? I think a lot of people will not weigh leads appropriately. So maybe a gated content download is weighted the same as like a contact us form download. So making sure you're weighting those differently and getting our high intent conversions in touch with sales much faster than maybe a content download conversion. I would say that's a mistake we often see.
Perfect. I think that's great too, Mary. And I think I'm looking at my 4 gorillas here. We have so many great examples in the chat. Like, I think we should just pull some up and talk about them, maybe offer analysis if all 4 of you are on board.
Yeah, I think that's great. We'll go with Ahmed first because Ahmed raised his hand first. He was brave. He got the flow going. I've got the website pulled up, so let me just share my screen. All right. Thanks for your patience, everybody. All right, Ahmed, and if you want to unmute and come on up here and talk with us, we'd be glad to kind of talk through it. So you sent us your homepage.
Homepage, yeah.
Okay, cool. Want to tell us a little bit about your site right now, or how are you feeling?
I mean, absolutely nervous. We just went through a rebrand. So this is like kind of like the first site we've put out there post that rebrand. We are very aware that a lot of changes need to be made, especially when it comes to making things clearer. It would be nice to get an insight to how long it takes you guys to understand what we do, because I don't think you'll actually get it just by watching this page, to be honest, which is something we need to definitely change over from this point forward.
Yeah, you're spot on that. I don't want to throw shade your way or anything, but I want to be able to tell what a company does. It's just like a really, really high level. Like in the first 5 seconds, you really want that like headline and subhead on your homepage to hammer that home right away. And I'm not sure that if you asked me exactly what Seamless Source is doing, I wouldn't be able to answer that. So I would fix that. And that's really, and feel free to jump in, anyone else, if you disagree. That's a pretty simple solve. I say simple, but you just have to change the words in the banner on your homepage. Coming up with what those words are is probably harder than it sounds. It's never easy to come up with a super succinct headline that's short and tells you everything it needs to say. That's actually a pretty big ask. But from a technical implementation perspective, I mean, that should be a pretty simple solve there. But you do have a lot of other things that are doing well for you. You've got a chat button right up front there. I think that's really good, as long as people are reactive to that chat. And then you're sending people to find out more. So if people are intrigued by what you have right now, they can dive deeper into the website and find out more. So I think that's really good. Your calls to action on the homepage are really, really obvious and clear.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, well said, Randall. I think that the only thing I wanted to point out is this is pretty good. When we're talking about the design elements that we've been mentioning, this is exactly what we're saying is make it real clear, real obvious where to click. Like that's first for conversion rate optimization. And then kind of what Randall's saying is, well, now let's drive the customer experience home, make sure we're saying the right things to compel them to click through. But just generally having the chat button, find out more. This seems like the 2 actions you really want someone to do. Those are real clear above the fold on mobile. I'm sure that's right there. And then I think the only thing I would think about is like your sign up button. One, love that it's a different color than your login. And then sometimes that doesn't happen. But 2, I would really think about maybe that says something different. And maybe you want to test that because I don't know if you get a lot of just direct traffic to signups, or like you have a couple motions that people have to do before they actually get the demo or sign up. That's what I would just think about. Maybe not change it, but is there another experience we can offer to get someone through in our funnel and do different things? And that's what that button could take you to. Just a different.
Just a quick question. I mean, what do you guys think about people using the terminology of book a discovery call? Because that was the original route for find out more, which is what it is, books a meeting with one of our team and the client. So what are your guys' thoughts on that in general?
Definitely. I think one, it depends how is your sales team staffed. And I think for going to bring kind of more to industrial again is you may not call a salesperson first. You may be talking to engineer first. So that's why a lot of our clients, they need that initial touch point where you offer the specs, application, and all that, so the engineer can be prepared. Now, again, for you, if you have SDRs or if you have someone who can take the call right away, and that's what the motion is, and yeah, I mean, I would keep the book a call if that's kind of, again, how your sales motion works.
Okay.
Yeah, my only comment would be, if you are having trouble, like Randall was saying, with people knowing exactly what you do when you come to the homepage, like instead of find out more, see how it works is a really powerful call to action, because it's very specific. So they're going to be able to see exactly how your system will work for them. It might be just a little more specific than find out more. And that's really only relevant if you find a lot of people if you have a high bounce rate, low conversion rate, or you get a lot of people in the chat or in your discovery calls who just don't really know what you do or who you do it for.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet.
Awesome. So then the next website, we'll just kind of keep on chugging along. We've got Jeremy. And Jeremy sent us over his contact form and request a quote. Holland, Michigan. That's a really beautiful place.
All right. Randall, do you want to start us off or?
Yeah. I've got it pulled up on my other screen here. I'm looking at the contact us. That's what we got pulled up here.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested to hear, because I'm seeing a lot of the asterisks, and we talked about this too. Like, when should you require something, on a form, and when do you just say, like, if you want to? What's your take on that, Randall?
So I think there's probably a balance to be struck, and so Aaron and Mary jump in. But from a usability perspective, from the visitor's perspective, you want to have as few form fields as possible to just make it easy to fill out the form, but you have to balance that with, what information is critical to collect. And I have thoughts on, if you have a form field that isn't required to fill out to submit the form, you should really consider deleting that form field. But, your message, maybe that one shouldn't be required. Maybe people just want to get their contact info in front of you. And then, like Mary was making a suggestion about having a form field on there about how did you find us? That's probably another example of a good optional form field. But it just really depends on what information you critically need and that you're going to force someone to fill out. But just know that nobody likes to be forced to do anything, even when it's as simple as just typing in a form field. So only require what is absolutely necessary.
Yeah, great insight there, Randall. I want to, like Dale said, something that's really important too is for the why. It's let's not create customer friction. And like if you require certain things like phone, I think people are just more unwilling to do that now than maybe they were 5 years ago. And now you get all those text messages from companies and you're like, I don't want that. So I think people are more inclined to not offer their phone. So maybe that's one you don't require. But what do you need to keep the conversation going? Maybe it's an email, right? Like So require that. Like, what do you need to get your sales motion going? Other things on here, like I would agree with your message is you probably need it. I know, but this is a contact form. So I would have different expectations for this form than the request a quote form, which I know you have too, as you brought it up.
Yeah, and as far as the layout of the page, I don't really see any like huge problems with it. I think that, you know, it's pretty clear that the information on the left is your like traditional contact information, and the form on the right, and it's really straightforward about what you need to do to get the form filled out. I don't think, you know, there's nothing here is over designed or under designed. I would say it's just right. You know, I would think about if your salespeople would prefer to have people fill out this form than just calling them all the time, just like basically cold calling you. I would just move that contact information down below the form, not to hide it, but just to emphasize the form and make that the obvious choice for reaching out to your company. But if you still would rather people call you and that's the preferred method of contact, then this is fine. A lot of times the order in which you put those types of contact on a page is determined by how you want customers to contact you. If you're getting way too many phone calls, then kind of push phone calls under the form.
Another great comment here from Kristen, like we leave the phone field as an optional, and in doing so, we have found typical serious prospects included. I think that's so important because, again, if your whole strategy, if you're creating demand, you're educating the market, they're ready to buy, they're going to give you the information. They want to talk to you. They want to buy your product. So if you do everything downstream to get to here the correct way, it's like people are going to offer that. You know, maybe we don't even need to require it, right? Our qualified, sales qualified, our qualified opportunities, they're going to give you the information. They want to buy from you. Any thoughts on that, Mary?
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. I would be really curious from both a heat map perspective and just qualitative perspective from you, Jeremy, on Peyton, if you scroll up all the way to the top when that double nav comes in. Yeah. So at the top left, are people clicking? Are they calling more? Are they emailing more? Or are they requesting a quote more often? Maybe all of those three are actually creating a little bit of friction by having too many options. If one is more popular than the other, I would say just stick to contact us, because you have the phone on the contact us form anyways. So if they really wanted to get in touch with you, they would see it, they could call you. It looks like the email us is your email anyways. And in the request a quote, that might be something better reserved if they're exploring a product page. So maybe in one of your products or parts and accessories, you could have a call to action that says request a quote, rather than like putting it right there on the main nav. So just something else to think about if you're finding there's some confusion on which one they're supposed to be doing.
Great comment, Mary. This is the request a quote form too. And so it looks like, you know, if you did want to switch the layout, you've already got a kind of a template where, you know, on your contact us form, you can kind of follow this and switch things around, but it's awesome.
So one more quick point there, and then we can go to another one, Peyton, like that project details and requirements. That's kind of what I was talking about, where like you can be even more clear. You can say, we need these specs from you. We need this, we need that. I just think when you're more clear, people will offer you the information. And often as I'm just looking at forms all day in HubSpot, people miss it, right? And then the engineer has to call them and ask, and the email happens and another email, get the specs. You can get that up front. Wow. Now you can get to the conversation about like, let's build something custom for you and get it on your shop floor. So just want to point that out.
Even a file upload. And if you're on HubSpot, I think that's pretty straightforward to do. I wouldn't make it mandatory that they upload a CAD file or, you know, whatever kind of spec file is necessary. But, you know, how useful would that be if you could like get a CAD drawing of, you know, whatever their product they're looking to build is? That would be amazing. And, you know, we've had a few clients where we set up these form field uploads, and I mean, people upload all kinds of useful stuff. I mean, it makes that first call a lot more productive.
Yeah, and a quick change here that you could make is just kind of what Randall said earlier, maybe explaining a little bit more about what's gonna happen, elaborating.
Oh yeah, that brings something else to mind. Like you can do a lot of really good expectation setting in 1 or 2 sentences above the form. Like if the form is really long, like letting them know like, hey, it's gonna take X amount of time to fill out this form, and then let them know like what's gonna happen after they hit the submit button. And then you can reinforce that on the thank you page. Like if you have a specific time window that someone's going to reach out to them after they fill out a quote form, like say that, like, we'll reach out to you in a week. We'll have one of our salespeople call you after you fill out this form, and then reinforce that on the thank you page as well.
All right, open in another contact us page. This one's from Julie. Hey, Julie. All right, got get in touch.
I was going to let you talk first, Randall. I always have something
no,
to say.
I'm one of those people that will have a lot of awkward silence because I'm thinking. I apologize for that.
Love that too. You want me to riff first, or you want to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead and riff.
Yeah, Julie, I think, again, when we think about forms differently, to me, this is perfect. This is a contact form. You're not asking for someone to look for a quote. They don't need to provide those things. This is simple. It's clean as far as the form fields and what you need to offer. I think the only thing I would suggest is kind of what we said on the last form is you can expectation setting. And I think I have you pulled up on my page. And maybe, Randall, that's what you want to go into here too. But, just generally, like, we can say, this is what's going to happen when you fill out the form. And you can start to put that expectation for the customer experience, and you can deliver on it. Oh, that offers confidence too, right? When you do what you say. So I think that may be one improvement, just a quick blurb about like what's going to happen next once you fill this out.
Yeah, it's always useful to, it might seem silly, like, hey, here's how to use this form, or here's how to fill it out. But just letting them know what's going to happen can go a really long way. Something else that an improvement you could make to this is, I just hit send message without filling out any of the form fields. And it looks like all the form fields are required, which is fine. You just want to make sure that you let people know that. Usually, you can imply that with an asterisk on the label for the form field. And most people are going to know what that is. But if you're concerned that they're not going to know, you can put a little footnote right next to the send message button that says asterisk indicates required form field. Just thinking through, like, if somebody put their name, email address, and company name, it didn't have a message to send you, and they hit send, and then it's like failed. You kind of want to let them know ahead of time that they need to fill that out. I think something else you could do with the layout is you kind of have 2 headlines. You have let's start a conversation at the top, and then get in touch. And the banner is kind of big and it looks nice, but I think for like contact pages, you could make that banner a lot smaller and just have the one headline on it. And then where it says get in touch is where you could do some of that expectation setting, letting them know what's going to happen after they fill out that form.
Thanks
Yeah,
so
I'd
much.
be interested, Julie, to hear like what percentage do you feel like of people who fill out the contact us form to get in touch are qualified?
I would say probably 50% of them are qualified. And the reason being, like I mentioned previously, we don't have salespeople here because what we do is essentially we're serving customers who have already spoken to a bunch of salespeople and realize that their solution is not commercially available and they need an engineer to design it for them. And so when they fill out this form, they're getting in touch directly with our lead designer. And so the one thing that is never sort of known up front is the cost context. And that's really the qualifier that that would help us. And I haven't come up with a way to sort of establish that up front without discouraging conversation. Because I mean, to have a custom machine and, you know, this type of capital equipment is not cheap. And so if somebody sees something on our website and they're like, hey, like the machine and the banner of the contact page is a lip balm filler. And we've had multiple people call us or email us and say, hey, you know, we have this lip balm company that would be great for us. How much is it? And when they find out, they're like, oh, and that's, you know, kind of the end of it. And so most customers who are coming to us are larger companies with sort of an idea of where that's going to fall. It's the smaller companies that that tend to not be more qualified leads in that way.
Yeah, that's super interesting, actually. That might be it could be a form field you add. So just like saying the company, and then you could do like some background research on whether or not it feels like it would be qualified or not. If that's not really a huge issue, what we've done on Gorilla's site, it's not the most popular way to do it, but you could do something like, hey, we're not the cheapest option, but as soon as you fill out this form, you will get in touch with a lead designer, like a qualified lead designer. You're not just going to get passed off to a sales rep. This is going to be somebody who's going to talk through and be like very knowledgeable in the details of your process. That can kind of like right away separate like qualified versus unqualified, especially if you have that, like, it's awesome that you have that clear of an indication on who's qualified and who's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually super helpful.
Thanks so much for sharing your page, Julie. We've got a couple more here. And also, I just want to plug for a second. This is the sort of stuff that we love the Slack channel for. Julie and Moni have been great about, you know, asking questions in there too. And we can kind of keep these conversations going as they happen, not just whenever we decide this is the topic we want to talk about this week. So I've got I'm not going to try and pronounce this. I'm sorry. Sumitomo.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And I'll stay on this site. I'll stay here. Awesome.
Yeah, I think my initial thoughts is like, again, when we say above the fold, like on desktop, everything above that, on mobile, it's going to be even tighter. You know, where's the format, right? You're asking someone to fill something out. That's the number one thing they do. I would just say from a conversion rate optimization standpoint, it's like, it's too far down. It's like, if that's the one thing you want them to do on this page, I would think about how you can get that further up it. Randall, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think to just like give you some direction on how you could do that, is I would combine your messaging. You have a headline and a subheading, and I would combine the request your personalized quote and it's easy to get started into like one headline, and then move the to receive a quote, please submit the form below and we'll respond to your request. Need immediate assistance. I think that's good. I would keep that on there and move that up on the far left and delete the image and put the form on the right. And that way it's all right there above the fold. It's super easy to see. I don't have this pulled up on mobile, but I would also look at this on mobile. You know, what happens to this image? I can imagine that it pushes everything down even further. But that said, you're doing a lot of things right here. You're setting up some expectations. You're giving them a phone number to call. Like if an existing customer is already on your website and they like lost your contact information and they're trying to like figure out how to get in touch with you, that's always a good thing. Yeah, but I think the main issue here would be getting that form higher up on the page, just so it's right there and it's immediate.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Brittany. All right, we got another one here. Monet. And then thanks for sending the translated link. Obviously a marketer, because he's like, here's my audience, they speak English. So
It would be interesting because I don't know any French to see if this would make sense in another language for me. But it's too late now. Spoilers.
Yeah, I think right off the bat, like this is exactly what we're talking about from conversion rate optimization. Is you want someone to come in, you want them to talk to you. Instead, you don't have your button that says learn more to take them to a blog or something. Because I imagine, you want to get someone on the phone because that's where you can be the most persuasive, compelling, usable to them. So that's exactly what you've done, is made that so visible. That's the only thing you can do. I would say, does that take us to a form if you click that?
Oh, can I say something really quick while we're on
Yeah.
this page? You don't have to go back. It's okay. I just want to point out something that you're doing that's really, really good is you've put your face on here. And that's always such a good thing to do. Like if you have even just a decent photo of the people at your company that talk to customers, it goes such a long way to like humanize your brand and make you feel a million times more approachable. Like if you can get people's faces that are legit, not stock photos, on your website, then that's just always a good move. It just makes you more approachable. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
yeah, and then it does take you to a form here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think, Miranda, if kind of an experience like this with Monty, like he just wants to get someone on the phone the quickest, and like maybe you may need a separate page for the form just for like measuring it. But like, is there a way to get this on the front page? Because I feel like for Monty, like you just want to get someone on the phone as quick as possible, and maybe not even want to navigate them somewhere else. Just kind of brainstorming here.
Yeah, you could have this form live a little further down on that page, and that button is an anchor link that just scrolls you down. That way, if somebody isn't enticed to click that button right away, but they read all of this, and this convinces them, then the form's right there already for them. And that button, instead of loading another page, just scrolls them down.
Looky here.
Oh yeah, you already got it there. So you could just make that an anchor link. Does that affect like tracking and stuff? I'm not sure. Mary and Aaron, I'd want your input on that. But if you just want it to be as quick as possible and you want to avoid another page load, anchor linking to that form down there would be a good move, I think.
Yeah, it's a great question, Randall, and I'll use the dirty marketing word. It depends. I think I think again, why you want to have a form on a separate page, it's going to help you in your CRM and your analytics tools to track that behavior. So if that's important to you in your business and you have to articulate that to your colleagues or leadership team, then yeah, you need to keep it on a separate form. But generally, if you're the customer, I want it to be as easy as possible. If I can just call you right now, if I can book a calendar link with you right now, even better for your business, Monty. I think so. Mary, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. Monty, I'd be interested, like, do you get a lot of form fills, and like, are most of them qualified?
Not many.
No. Okay, cool. So that's actually a good thing then that you do the form, I think. I was gonna say, if like most people are filling it out and most of them are qualified, like just doing a book a calendar, like book a link with you so they can just book time directly might be good. But if not many are qualified, that's an interesting insight. Then maybe on that head of your homepage, maybe I'll learn more about what I do or something like that might help. Yeah. Just some like off the cuff thoughts.
I wanted to bring up one topic that Julie mentioned in the chat about translation. And I know that we've done this for a client of ours in the past, where and we use the word, and Julie even used the word depending here. I think it depends on like what's your goal with translation. So, you know, Moni, maybe it's important for you to work in both English and in French. You're comfortable doing that, but you prefer to work in French. So, you know, hey, you get an English customer, that's great. You can depend on Google Translate. But for a business that is trying to be like a global business, and I think we have even talked about this as far as like writing ads in other languages. Like you're going to want to make sure that you're using someone who is a native speaker who truly understands the language to help you translate your website, so that you have a, you know, Spanish version and an English version. So that way you're using the right words in the right ways throughout the whole thing. But I just wanted to mention that really quickly because I've definitely seen that, like using words in really weird ways, and you can just tell. And I think that affects your chances on doing business in multiple languages.
Great point there, Peyton. Do we have time to do one more? Or
If folks want to hang out, I've got time to do one more. Let's see. I think if we just go in order here, I think that might be Jared, who was our next victim. And also Jared, you've been posting some great commentary in the chat, and really appreciate that too. Let me just go ahead and share my screen one more time. All right. Midvale Industries.
Yeah, so for Randall, I'm just taking it away. I'm thought my first thought again is like kind of the things we've talked about. So this is a contact form, right? So someone wants to send you a message. It could be about anything. Maybe it's not a sales motion. So if that's the case, it's like maybe we don't want to require these forms, right? It's essentially someone wants to send you their name, their email, and the message so you can respond back to them. Now, if this is the form that you're using to also get leads for your business, then I would really think about coming up with two separate forms that may help you with qualifying, may help you with tracking, all the other things we've mentioned. Brandon, you have any comments about like the usability of this form or anything like that?
The form itself, I think, is fine. The message box could be a little bit bigger, but you do have the like expanding corner thing. I don't even know what that's called. I probably should. But there's a couple like legibility issues I would call out, and these should be simple fixes, but the email text on that dark gray background, the contrast just isn't there. And if you Google like contrast checker tools, you can put in the color value for your text in the background and it'll score it. There's like actually a standard for this stuff, and it'll give you an A through a AAA rating. And usually you want to aim for the AA rating is the minimum for like readability. So if anybody has like some vision impairment or they have like some mild color blindness or something like that, those kind of things can almost disappear for folks. And then one other thing that could cause a little bit of confusion is that when you underline text, it's kind of like ingrained into people's minds now that use the internet that those are links, and people may be clicking on those. That might be something to look at heat maps. And it's frustrating for a visitor to think that something's a link and they want to get something and they're clicking on it and nothing is happening. So to give like some contrast for those, I would, instead of underlining, just bold that text to give it contrast with the information that's behind it. But I think, you know, the form is really simple and it's very clear what you need to do on this page. And then I like that you have your locations below the form. A lot of times I'll see people put like maps and stuff above their form or next to it. And unless people are like actually navigating to your office to like talk to you, like knocking on your door, It's usually not like a good thing to like block your form or squeeze its space by putting a map on here. But obviously for a lot of other reasons, like understanding their physical location is important. You know, if you're building really huge machines and it costs, you know, half the cost of the machine to ship it across the US, location can be important. So I think that it's good that it's on there, but it's not blocking the form.
Mary, you got any thoughts before we close out here?
No, that was perfect. Nailed it.
Nailed it. Awesome. Well, and I know, Emily, you had some questions too, and I think that Kristen has been chiming in the chat. Thank you. It takes a village around here. We're super thankful for this community, and we really appreciate everyone who's already joined the Slack channel. I feel like we've had great conversations there, that they're making this space even stronger, which is just super cool to see. And if you do have additional pages that you'd like to, you know, throw up to the community and say, hey, can you guys take a look, test this out? I've been doing that too in the Slack channel. So if you've got a link that you want me to test, I'm always happy to click through and make sure the form's working. So definitely do that. And we just really appreciate Randall joining us on this episode of Industrial Marketing Live. And we will see you all in about 2 weeks. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your Thursday.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys.